Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm your host, Arnav Sarkar, after a big week of college football and the NFL alike. And as usual, I have game recaps of every big college and NFL game of the previous week and previews of every big college and NFL game for the next week. I'll go through a 16-game NFL recap, but big college football game reviews and previews and NFL previews for the biggest games of week 5. But first of all, college football week 4 recap, starting with my Rutgers Scarlet Knights going down to Blacksburg and getting a win. I was there. Great environment. Enter Sandman was excellent, really exciting. And so so was the football game. Hokies fans were really nice and friendly to visiting fans. I was really glad I made the trip. A long 7-hour drive each way, but completely worth it. Speaking of football itself, 26-23 win, but it was a tale of two halves for the Scarlet Knights. They were just absolutely dominant. Virginia Tech kind of knew what Rutgers was going to do, try to run the ball, but Rutgers kept running the same option play over and over again, with Calic Manis getting short passes. I like to call them short, soft passes to their tight end Kenny Fletcher. And Rutgers just took advantage, getting first downs, going 10 yards up the sideline. Even in the intermediate game, finding Dymere Miller, Ian Strong, basically Virginia Tech kind of sold out on the run and left, Rutgers receivers downfield available, for intermediate gains. So, I mean, Rutgers really found the holes in the soft zone coverage and created first down. So the passing game was on fire. The rushing game, not so much, although Kamanangai did score a rushing touchdown. He had a couple nice cuts. A busy day on the ground, 26 carries for 84 yards. And Sam Brown added 2 touchdowns. All the running the main danger of the rushing game was the touchdowns that got Rutgers the lead. Calic Manis had a busy day through the air, but Rutgers finished it off on the ground. They got up to a 23-7 lead. The first half is very sloppy on both sides. Virginia Tech, Jalen's their punt returner Jalen Lane fumbled punt return. Gave it right back to Rutgers, short field. Rutgers goes up 7-0. Virginia Tech ends up tying the game later on, and then Rutgers goes up by 16 towards the end of the third quarter. But a lot of strange sequences. Jay Patel missed a couple field goals. Um, Virginia Tech ended up fumbling, giving the ball to Scarlet Knights. And then on a later drive in the game, the Hokies jumped off sides and gave the Scarlet Knights life when they desperately needed it. But then Rutgers proceeded to fumble and give the Hokies the ball back, and then Rutgers ended up stuffing Kyron Jones in the end zone. I believe he tripped over one of his own linemen, which in Rutgers defender Wesley Bailey pushed into him, caused a safety where Jones threw the ball out the back of the end zone, quite far into the stands. Actually, it's pretty funny. But regardless, Rutgers went to the locker room with a 16-7 lead after a safety, and more points in the second half after another fumble set up, another short field, and Rutgers then kind of collapsed. I mean, they had the opportunity to win the game. They made some questionable decisions, I would say. Or at least Greg Schiano and the coaching staff did. I mean, 4th down and 1, they got stopped and they didn't convert. They went for a passing play when they could have just handed it to Manangai, or they could have taken a chip shot field goal, make it a 3-score game. Virginia Tech was just, outmatched physically and schematically. I mean, you know, um, they were not able to. I feel like they might have been the more talented team, but they were not able to utilize it at all, and they were getting dominated on all three phases of the game, really. But Rutgers really ended up shooting themselves in the foot, giving the Hokies life when they desperately needed it, and that caused problems. So obviously, besides the 4th and 1, Rutgers ended up sending out Jay Patel, who had already missed a 35 or 36-yard field goal, which I thought was strange, but it might have been kicking from the other hash. It might have been the fans. The fans were really rowdy. That stadium does a good job keeping the energy in. Whatever the case, it could have just been a bad day, but for whatever reason, Jay Patel already missed a 36-yard field goal attempt. So to go from 53 yards out, kind of a risky decision. You're in deep in VT territory. I believe you're on their own 35-yard line. So I would say you just keep the offense on the field, but or punt it into their end zone. But they decide to do neither. Kick a long field goal miss. Virginia Tech still ends up turning the ball over and down. So then Rutgers, I believe, eventually, ends up getting sacked in back-to-back plays. The VT's line got to him and gave Virginia Tech, gave Virginia Tech a short field. Jalen Lane returned a punt, set up an easy score for the Hokies, 2-point conversion. At this point, they had all the momentum, so stopping Rutgers, getting another score, and suddenly we have a tie game. But it was Rutgers who put the nail in the coffin against Virginia Tech. Ian Strong catching a screen pass going in and out, and able to take it to the end zone. Well, not to the end zone, but getting stopped short of the end zone, but near the end zone for a big first down. Jay Patel added the field goal, gave Rutgers a 26-23 lead. Field goal from about 22 yards out, and then finally, the big play of the game, of course, Robert Longerbeam, the Virginia native, making a big play in his home state, tipping the Kyron Drones pass on third down, and that probably would have gone to an open receiver and intercepting it. But so questionable decisions by the coaching staff. One thing I liked about the win for Rutgers is although they collapsed, they ended the game on their own terms. They didn't let Virginia Tech lose the game. They didn't let them win the game. They didn't leave it up to chance. They just said we're winning, and I think that gave fans in the stadium some closure and some, confidence, determination that they have the ability to win close games. They, like Greg Schiano said, they learned a lesson, but that could be useful. They still won the game. They didn't leave it up to chance because Virginia Tech could have gotten the field goal range, kicked the field goal. They could have sent it to overtime. Who knows? They could have even turned it over on downs and lost the game, but it would have felt incomplete. It would have felt like maybe they would have had a chance. But Rutgers proved again to be the team that wanted it more, that made the plays at the big time, and they deserve all the credit for coming up with the screen pass. It was a brilliant call by Kirk Chiraka. Same play that got intercepted against Michigan, but this time they had confidence. They ran the play. Ian Strong cut back out, open space downfield. Jay Patel added the field goal, able to shake off the missed field goals, and then of course Robert Longerby making a play, saying, I mean, a calling game, basically saying that's it. You know what I mean? Like he wanted to end it right there and then, and that's exactly what he did. So congrats on Rutgers for the big win. 3-0, non-conference streak continues. But it's time for Big Ten play. Big game against Washington, the blackout, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But while we're previewing other matchups, or reviewing other matchups, I should say, Illinois over Nebraska. This was a Friday night game in the Big Ten. Illinois, I believe, ranked 22 at the time of last week, and then Nebraska ranked or Illinois ranked 24, Nebraska ranked 22. But it was Illinois getting the win. Very impressive win by Illinois. Nebraska has looked good with Dylan Raiola. They haven't really faced that stiff competition yet, but they still look pretty good. Nebraska losing another one-score game, back and forth affair. Just that one just kind of kept going, but at the same time, it was Illinois able to pull out the W, ranked unranked on Friday night. So I'd say they definitely deserve the credit for that. Luke Altmaier, two 15 yards for four touchdowns through the year, and Dylan Raiola 297, 3 touchdowns in the pick. Kind of a back and forth game. Could have gone either way. Nebraska went up a touchdown. Illinois tied and got the game winner in overtime. So a very close win there. But we move on to next week. Rutgers does play Nebraska in a couple of weeks. So something to keep their eye out on in a tough environment. But Illinois able to get it done. They go to Penn State next week. I'll be covering that in just a second. Next up, Michigan taking on USC and knocking them off. A bit of a surprise. I thought Michigan was kind of done in terms of at least being a serious contender. USC coming in with a physical defense, a pretty solid offense, but it was Michigan able to hold them off, making the quarterback change, throwing Alex Orji in there, didn't let him pass it nearly at all, 7 for 12 for 32 yards, but it was Michigan dominating on the ground like they did last year. Khalil Mullings with 159 rushing yards, including a 53-yard run. Donovan Edwards had a good game, 41 yards. Will Johnson a pick six from 42, and then a block extra point. But USC hung in there. They fell behind 14-3. They came back, even took the lead 24-10 in the fourth quarter. That passing attack pretty solid from Miller Moss and company, but it was a Michigan on a ground and pound drive where they just went power run. And you could take away the quarterback, you could take away a lot of the players, but their identity is going to be the same. And run the ball, stop the run. That's the formula that works in the Big Ten. But Michigan really, I would say, saving their season, really putting higher expectations on their season. People thought they would be left for dead after Texas. They're like, no, we could still have a good season. We could contend in the Big Ten, back up to 12 now in the rankings. And, I think they're still going to be a competitor, whether they beat Ohio State or Penn State. Well, they're not playing Penn State, but whether they're in the upper echelon and make the playoff, that remains to be seen. I think they might be still on the outside looking in, but they're still determined to have a good season. Maybe I could see 9-3. I could see maybe 10-2. I mean, I don't know. I had my doubts they're going to even beat teams like Minnesota, Indiana, Washington, but I think now outside of Oregon, Ohio State, I think they should be able to they should be able to win, and I'm sure they'll let Alex Orji pass it a bit more as the year goes on as well. But they're going to be in the picture. Are they going to win the big games? Probably not, but I think they could still have a very solid season. Kind of what more like what people are thinking Michigan was going to be like before the big loss to Texas and the way the first few weeks went. But they found their identity. They'll be there. I think, this week really surprised people. People didn't really expect that from them. People also thought USC was ready for the Big Ten. They looked pretty good against LSU, but and they certainly are. But um, you know, they they still have to work on that defense. But yeah, Michigan making a big statement, proving that they're still in the upper echelon of Big Ten teams. Maybe not where they were last year, but still much more like a 8-4, 9-3, maybe even 10-2 type team. We'll see. But they're still going to be in the contenders. They're not going to be national championship contenders, but they're going to be a team who may or may not make the playoff and will be pretty competitive. Moving on to another ranked matchup, Utah versus Oklahoma State. Big 12 ranked matchup here. I think this one could be huge in deciding who wins that conference. My pick was Utah in the beginning of the season. Oklahoma State, also one of the best teams, both of them coming in undefeated, but it was Utah hanging on in Oklahoma State territory, even without Cam Rising, with their backup quarterback Isaac Wilson throwing two picks. They still managed to win the game. Alan Bowman 206 yards, two touchdowns, two picks. Isaac Wilson 207, one touchdown, two picks. But a monster day in the ground by Micah Bernard, going for 182 rushing yards on 25 carries. Dorian Singer 7 receptions for 95 yards, and Oklahoma State actually had an early lead, but it was all Utah going up 22-3 before Oklahoma State tried to mount a comeback late, but was too little, too late, falling 3 points short. But yeah, this is a matchup between two of the best in the Big 12. I think Utah, stamped that they're the favorites in the conference, and rightfully so. They've won the Pac-12, which, by the way, has its seventh member in Utah State. Big news there. But yeah, I think this was a matchup between two contenders in the Big 12. Utah definitely proving to be the better team. Moving on to Missouri taking on Vanderbilt. I think this was a very interesting one because Vanderbilt's been an interesting team. They beat Virginia Tech, who we mentioned just lost to Rutgers. They knocked off Alcorn State, FCS opponents. So kind of, not really expecting a ton over there. But then they lost to Georgia State, which I thought was interesting. Losing to a lower ranked team there. But Georgia State getting the upset at Georgia State. But they played Missouri really tough. It was a bit shocking. Missouri is one of the best, was supposed to be one of the better teams in the SEC, and still very well still might be ranked 11 now. They knocked out Boston College, but as the competition got tougher and they've struggled just a little bit, it's kind of almost a matchup of two SEC underdogs and darlings in a way. But this time Missouri definitely by far the favorites over Vanderbilt, able to edge them out in overtime. It could have been a big statement win for Vanderbilt, who already has the upset over Virginia Tech. Like you said, next up, Alabama. This is a better Vanderbilt team than usual. It's still not going to be anywhere near competitive in the SEC now, which is loaded with Texas, Georgia, Alabama. More on that one in a second. But another game to get to here is going to be Texas A&M taking on Bowling Green. Bowling Green's been surprising. Did want to talk about this. They played Penn State, very close, lost by a touchdown, had the lead, I believe, in the fourth quarter. They did lose 34-27. And again, a one-score game, Texas A&M 26-20 over a very capable Bowling Green team. This is going to be a team to watch out for in the MAC. The MAC is not a conference to be sleeping on whatsoever. Watch out. Bowling Green playing two good Power 5 teams, ranked Power 5 teams very well. But yet, even having the lead in as late, leading Penn State at halftime, falling behind, not able to win that one, and then against A&M as well, kind of back and forth game, but not quite able to hang on and knock off two ranked teams. But they're going to be competitive in the MAC. Another team, Northern Illinois already has the upset over Notre Dame, but they lost to Buffalo. Toledo going into Mississippi State and dominating them. So this is the top of the MAC, very good. The bottom of the MAC is, where Akron and Kent State are not too great, with Kent State getting blanked in multiple Power Five contests, losing to an FCS opponent. But that top of the conference definitely can be competitive with the best of them. And finally, the last game here I wanted to touch on was Tennessee over Oklahoma, SEC opener for OU, taking on a very good Tennessee team now that's ranked fifth in the nation in the loaded SEC conference that features many of the top teams: Texas 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, Alabama 4, Tennessee 5, Ole Miss 6. That's another team to watch out for. I mean, this playoff is going to be loaded with SEC teams. We'll see what the other conferences have to say. Texas rolling with Arch Manning, taking on ULM, Louisiana Monroe, led by General Booty, one of the most interesting names in college football. But Arch Manning, the backup quarterback, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks, fan favorite, even as the backup to Quinn Ewers. But Tennessee over OU. It looked like it was a decently close game. Not quite at all. Tennessee got off to a 22-3 lead. Before Oklahoma really was able to get back into the game. Tennessee's been dominant in the non-conference play, but they've backed it up, and they're going to be a team to watch out for. They really are. Nico Iamaleava, really good quarterback, and yeah, they look good. Oklahoma got their welcome to the SEC. They got humbled. But we'll see what happens next week. That's going to be the college football Week 4 recap. A lot of great games in there. Of course, getting to go to Rutgers, Virginia Tech, in Blacksburg, definitely my highlight, but a lot of ranked unranked matchups. And shifting the scene now to Week 5, Virginia Tech, right where we left off, but they go to Miami, who's I think far and away the best team in the ACC. Maybe Boston College, I think might be the second best team, but I think the U is going to be absolutely dominant. They've been dominant in the non-conference play, and they dispatched a scrappy South Florida team 50-15, although just like Alabama, South Florida hung in that game, was down 22-15 at the half. But unlike Alabama, Miami pulled away a lot quicker. Regardless of that, I'm not saying Miami is necessarily better than Alabama, but I think Miami might be up there with the best in college football this year. One of the rare ACC teams to really do that. But Virginia Tech's going to be a huge underdog in Miami. They weren't able to defeat Rutgers. Miami coming up, as a 19.5 point favorites with Cam Ward, and they really look like a much different team than we've seen in previous years. The U might be back, ACC favorites there. Some of the other games that I wanted to talk about. Of course, we get Rutgers versus Washington, the blackout game. I'm wearing my blackout jersey. As that game's 2 days away, one of the best Rutgers games you can go to as a fan, as a student, whatever. It's just going to be, an excellent nighttime game. I'm so excited. I love the nighttime atmosphere. They want fans to come in half an hour early. The band's going to have a big performance. It should be a great time, great experience. Under the lights, they always do a good job with the light show. But it's Rutgers. It's the Big Ten opener after another 3-0 start for the Scarlet Knights, and they welcome in none other than the defending national runners-up in Washington. Very different team this year, different coach, different quarterback. Will Rogers is very good. Their offense is very good. They have a good running back. They have a couple good receivers on that team. So Washington, their only loss at Washington State, or a neutral site game against Washington State. But other than that, they have a solid offense. They have a good defense as well. Play a different scheme under Steve Belichick than a lot of teams do. But Washington coming in looking for a victory across the country. Rutgers home advantage. 2.5 point favorites. It should be a good game. I'm really excited to see what happens. This is about even strength on even strength, and it's a really good opponent. But it's also a very evenly matched game, and it's going to be a great environment. But with Will Rogers and some of the players on this Washington team, it's gonna be a tough fight for the Scarlet Knights. But I think they can come up with a win in the blackout game as well. Although I will say that they did beat Northwestern 24-5, which has me a little bit worried. The receiver Boston looks pretty good. Their running back looks pretty good, but I think Rutgers, at home, I think they have a tough secondary that's going to be matched against the receivers. Even though Will Rogers can throw the deep ball very well, they are weak. Washington's weak in the run defense, where Rutgers and Kyle Monangai can take advantage. we'll see if Rutgers ends up having a big running game or a big passing game. Because if Washington struggles with the run, they can go there. But if Washington sells out against the run, Rutgers could throw it through the air. Dymere Miller, Ian Strong, even Kenny Fletcher. We'll see if they can roll out some RPOs. But that offense has a passing element with Manis, and that's going to be something to watch out for. But shifting the stage now over to the other the program that Manis used to be a part of, the Minnesota Golden Gophers taking on the Michigan Wolverines, the number 12 ranked Wolverines, which we already talked about here. But that should be an interesting one. How do they, another home game here? How do they respond to how do they respond to a tough loss for Minnesota, losing to Iowa 31-14. Can Michigan keep the Big Ten dominance going? Can they keep their formula rolling with their run game? Run the ball, stop the run. Are they going to get Orji involved? Alex Orji, more in the passing game. But like I said, Michigan probably going to be able to compete with a lot of these teams in the conference. Maybe not all of them, but like I said, there's still going to be a very competitive team, like the Michigan football of late. Maybe not quite as good, but they're going to be in the conversation. So a big game against Minnesota. I believe that's the big noon game of the week. Some of the other ones, Louisville taking on Notre Dame, a ranked unranked here. Notre Dame, after a loss to NIU, they've been pretty good. Louisville, one of the top teams in the ACC, 3-0. Might be a team to watch out for here, coming off a victory against Georgia Tech. 15 versus 16. It's always a big matchup there. So it should be an interesting one. Notre Dame probably favored just by a little, Louisville favored just by a little bit, but I think I think Notre Dame potentially gets the win if they really want to have a chance at that playoff. They really got to win out the rest of the way. Louisville, another one of the top teams in the ACC. I think that could be an interesting matchup as well. Another one to watch out for, Georgia versus Bama. This is obviously going to be the game of the week. There's nothing really more to say, except for, it's the game of the week. Crimson Tide coming in, 3-0. So are Georgia. Both of them coming off of byes. Alabama dispatched a Wisconsin team that, lost their quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke for the season, but they look good. Ryan Williams looked really good. But Georgia had a bit of off game against Kentucky, not really able to stop letting Kentucky march down, but stopping them in the red zone, not really able to get their offense going. But Georgia's still Georgia. They're going to be back and ready, but it's basically the SEC championship game in the regular season, if you want to call it that. Although Texas is going to be in the way, but this is the second-ranked Bulldogs taking on the fourth-ranked Crimson Tide. These two sides are ready for each other. They're as good as each other. They're as good as anyone else in the country. Watch out! This is going to be must-see TV, 7:30 p.m. ABC. I mean, you don't want to miss this game. And the other game that's going to be running alongside it is the Big Ten undercard. But a good game in its own right between two impressive sides. Illinois, 19th ranked, 4-0 after a defeat of Nebraska. The ninth ranked Penn State-Nittany Lions facing their first real test of the season. It's going to be whiteout energy, not an official whiteout, but whiteout energy. Penn State favored by, I believe, 18.5. I think Illinois covers that probably relatively easily. I don't think they win, but I think they might end up losing by 7-10. But I think Penn State, is going to be up for the challenge. We'll see if they're up for a challenge. It's going to be a different year in the Big Ten, though. With Michigan not looking as good, Penn State doesn't play them anyway, so I guess we won't really see how that one goes. But Ohio State going to be a really tough task for any team in the nation, including Penn State, who struggle with them. But other than that, Penn State might not lose a game this season. They have USC. They have some other tough matchups, but can they make a statement here in front of their home crowd? History says that they probably will. The last time Illinois went to Penn State, they won 20-18 in 9 overtimes. If you remember that game, we'll see if there's anything like that. It's a matchup between two good teams. And finally, to end the slate here, we have Washington State taking on Boise State and featuring Pac-12 preview now with all these teams coming in together. But Boise battling against the Washington State Cougars. It should be an interesting one. Boise State, they're only lost to a very good Oregon team, who's the other big contender in the Big Ten, 34-37. They bounced back, big win against Portland State, FCS team and over there. They haven't exactly been too great, but Boise State definitely looking good. Gonna host Washington State on their home turf. Washington State's 4-0. They came up a victory over Washington, handed them their only loss of the season. The thriller against San Jose State, which they won in two overtimes. But going to the blue turf and a ranked Boise State team, which should be really interesting. Um, battle across the Palouse, so it should be pretty interesting. I believe Washington State was the team who, would have been 26. So it could be, it feels like a rank versus rank matchup, not technically, but it'd be basically be 25 versus 26. But that's pretty much how that one goes. That's college football for you. Another story is Ben Sluka. Um, decided to take a redshirt year and sit the season after his NIL payments haven't been coming through, which I thought was really interesting. This is the reality of college football. This is how it's going to be decided based on money, based on contracts. I don't know why. I guess it was a verbal agreement. I don't know how that's going to play out. I mean, they should really be honoring that. It's strange that they aren't, but it just seems like he's just not going to get his money, so he decided to sit the season. I think that's the big news there. But I guess I wanted to shift over to the NFL with a 16 game every week recap. I was thinking just to keep it to the top five, but I figure why not just run through the slate in the NFL. So here we go with that. Patriots versus Jets, 24-3, dominating win for Aaron Rodgers and the JTS. But in all seriousness, Aaron Rodgers getting it done, 281 yards, two touchdowns. They look good, and this is like kind of the antithesis of the Patriots dominating the Jets. I guess the evil empire really is over in New England. Jacoby Brissett didn't look too great. Well, he looked pretty decent, 12 for 18, 98 yards, but it was a Jets domination. This is what the Jets fans were waiting for when Aaron Rodgers was coming to town. They had the roster around him. They had Garrett Wilson. They have Alan Lazard now. They have Breece Hall. They have a good running game. They have Braylon Allen, and they have a very solid defense. But now they have the quarterback to be able to get the ball to the receivers, move the ball down the field, and keep the Jets competitive in the AFC East. So, JETS, 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 Jets. But switching over to the other New York team, which I'm a fan of, the New York Giants got their first win of the season against the hapless Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson, not really his best day. The Giants defense was all over him. I believe eight sacks or something, 8 sacks and two turnovers by the Giants defense. Brian Burns was great. There's a lost fumble recovery. Daniel Jones played well, 236 for two touchdowns. But the big break, Devin Singletary, 65 yards and a touchdown. Would have had another one, but he kneeled it out. The Giants almost did collapse. They hung in there to stop Cleveland 21-15. But the big star of the game was Malik Neighbors, 1 week after dropping the game-winning pass, which I really don't want to blame him too much for that. But this week he was just absolutely on fire. I mean, some of the catches he was making over the defenders, ripping the ball from his hands, then the toe tap comeback route in the end zone, and then going the other way catching it. I mean, he made two ridiculous catches on the same drive, and snatching it away from the defender, and then the toe tap in the end zone. I mean, we have a playmaker, we have a superstar receiver. He's got the swagger, he's got the confidence. He is him, as he's posted himself on Instagram. But Malik Neighbors really opening up that connection with Daniel Jones, and it's just a great sight to see. I mean, I'm really excited to see what the Giants do next. It feels like the season's alive, and I don't really know how to feel about that. But Daniel Jones looked good. Malik Neighbors looked good. I mean, the Giants look good. The defense looked good. I mean, they went to a tough Cleveland defense, and absolutely Malik Neighbors absolutely handled them. And of course, it had to be stressful. It's never easy being a Giants fan. No scoring in the second half. Cleveland scored a touchdown, but we're not able to equalize. But a win's a win, and what a great win it was too. Really a big energizer, and we'll get to this, but they got the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. We'll see if they can keep the magic rolling. But sticking in the NFC East, the Eagles over the Saints. This one obviously I'm not a big fan of, but the Saints got humbled. They beat the Cowboys, they beat the Panthers pretty badly, and now they kind of got it flipped on them. And it was a close game, very defensive struggle. I was kind of watching this one in and out with the Giants game, but there was no scoring outside of Blake Groupie 34-yard field goal. It's just defense, defense, defense. Both sides have two of the best defenses in the league. Saquon Barkley trying to make up for his drop, that was part of the reason that cost the Eagles game. There's a lot of other reasons for that, as we talked about last week. But Saquon Barkley broke a big run, 65 yards to the house, and the Saints ended up answering it with a field goal and then a touchdown. And then, of course, then the Eagles go down the field. Saquon Barkley scores again and gets a 2-point conversion on all himself. The Eagles dominated in total yards, 460 to 219. But it was on defense, Reed Blankenship making the big interception to seal the deals. And another big player for the Eagles in this game was Dallas Goedert with 10 catches, 170 yards, including some big ones that got the Eagles in favorable position for that touchdown. He made some ridiculous catches. Alvin Kamara kind of shut down, 26 carries, 87 yards. Olave with 86 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 311 and a pick. He also fumbled one that really didn't need to be fumbled. He's been the turnover machine this season. I believe only 2 touchdowns and 6 picks. Somehow a bit worse than Daniel Jones, but it's what it is. So the Eagles though getting it done on the backs of their defense, on the backs of Saquon Barkley in the ground and Dallas Goedert through the air. They moved to 2-1 and are tied with the Commanders for the lead in the division. More on them in a second. Next up, Texans versus Vikings. The Vikings might just be one of the best teams in the NFL. We thought it might be a fluke when they defeated the Giants 28-6. We thought it might be a reflection on how bad the Giants are, but it looks like it's more like how good the Vikings are. I mean, on both sides of the ball, defense and offense. Sam Darnold having another big game, obviously to beat the 49ers as well. But Sam Darnold having another big game, 181 yards, 4 touchdowns. CJ Stroud with 2 picks. Aaron Jones, 102 yards. Justin Jefferson, 81 and a touchdown. A huge dominating win. They look like one of the best teams in the league, and that's it. That's not something people really expected. Detroit's in that division, Green Bay's in that division as well, but it should be interesting. Denver getting their first win of the season. A big surprise there. Tampa Bay's looked pretty good up to this point. Completely get it flipped on them here. Go Knicks, 216 yards, no dumb turnovers here, and a dominating win for the Broncos. Not much at all to say for the Buccaneers. Hopefully they bounce back next week because they play the Eagles again, where Philadelphia's season went to die last year after an epic collapse, but just not a great week. Baker Mayfield, 163 yards, a pick and a touchdown. Bucky Irving, 70 yards on the ground. But moving on to Green Bay, taking on Tennessee. Some Malik Willis show in Green Bay, 202 yards on 13 of 19 and a touchdown, 73 rushing yards on the ground, another touchdown. So big show for him. Will Levis, the ridiculous turnovers continue. 2 picks. DeAndre Hopkins got a touchdown. Titans have looked hapless. They're 0-3. The Bears look, the Packers look pretty decent. They're at 2-1. The only loss coming in the opener to Philadelphia. Take on the Vikings next. Should be a good game. Caleb Williams continues to struggle in Chicago, getting the volume through the air. 33 of 52, 363 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. One of the touchdowns to Ruma Dunze, who was drafted in the same draft coming from Washington. Jonathan Taylor, 2 touchdowns, 110 yards. Anthony Richardson had some bizarre interceptions as well, but kind of a back and forth game. But the Indianapolis Colts kind of had the lead, and the Bears weren't able to do enough to get back into it. Colts 1-2, Bears also 1-2. Caleb Williams kind of realizing what works in the NFL works in college football doesn't work in the NFL. Still going to be a great player. Needs to kind of take the time to figure it out. It's a different league out there. Indianapolis getting the win against Chicago. Both in pretty close proximity to each other. LA and Pittsburgh definitely not that close proximity to each other at all. The Chargers 2-1, Pittsburgh 3-0. Justin Fields' experiment seems to be working out just fine without Russell Wilson. 245 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Calvin Austin 95 and a touchdown. Najee Harris 18 for 70. Herbert 125 and a touchdown. LA took the lead early, but Justin Fields ended up running it in, tying the game. Kind of a back and forth affair, but in the fourth quarter is all Pittsburgh. 30-yard field goal by Chris Boswell and Calvin Austin with the 55-yard pass from Fields. 20-10. Defense holding up well, only allowing 10 points for Pittsburgh. They're 3-0, a team to watch out for in the AFC North. They actually lead it, but the rest of the division not really doing too well. Ravens and Browns 1-2, Bengals 0-3. Who would have thought the Steelers would be the team to have the lead? I certainly didn't, but we keep the show moving on because 8 games down, 8 games to go. Next up, Seahawks dominating the Dolphins. Dolphins look lost without Tua, even though Skylar Thompson 13 of 19, 107 yards. But Tyreek quiet, Devon Achane quiet, the team quiet, all Seattle, both on defense and offense, just dominating in every statistic and every metric. And DK Metcalf 71-yard pass in the at the end of the first quarter, right after Jason Sanders' field goal, and then just no scoring. It was 17-3 at the end of the first quarter, and no scoring until another touchdown by Seattle to basically ice the game. In the Pacific Northwest, well, probably longest trip that you can make in the NFL from Miami to Seattle. But Panthers Raiders, the Panthers look like a different team. They bench Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle comes in 26 for 37, 319 yards, and 3 touchdowns, including some gorgeous passes, including Adam Thielen with 31-yarder, things like that. The Panthers look alive. The Raiders coming off the big win against Baltimore, not looking too great. But that's that one. Keeping the show moving on. Rams knock off the 49ers. So not very surprising. The 49ers had 14-point leads in this game. The LA Rams came back each time. This doesn't look great when that's the case. The Rams have so many players on IR. I know there's no McCaffrey, but Jawan Jennings, big game, 175 for 3 touchdowns. Brock Purdy, 292 for 3 touchdowns. But this is the way they're gonna play. They can kiss the Super Bowl and NFC goodbye. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are playing better. LA has so much of their team on IR as well, and they just won basically a Niners home game in their own stadium. But sticking in the NFC West, this one I was intrigued for. The Detroit Lions coming off of the NFC Championship game appearance, taking on the Arizona Cardinals with with Marvin Harrison Jr. being the star last week. This week, maybe not so much. Looking at his receiving yard total, but 64 yards and a touchdown. Michael Wilson also had 64 yards. So they tied in receiving to lead the Cardinals in receiving the same amount of yards. Marvin Harrison with the touchdown. But it was Detroit getting the win. They kind of needed to bounce back after last week's loss to Tampa Bay in a divisional rematch. This week it was Detroit going down there. Jared Goff 199, 2 touchdowns and a pick. David Montgomery 105 on the ground. Amon-Ra St. Brown 75 and a touchdown. Back and forth game, but Detroit ended up falling significantly. It had 20-7 the second quarter. Matt Prater beat the buzzer to get it to 20-10, and in the fourth, Arizona got another field goal. But that was all she wrote. Detroit getting the win. Gonna need that one to stay competitive with the Vikings in the NFC North. But going over back to the AFC North, we have the Baltimore Ravens knocking off the Dallas Cowboys 28-25. And once again, who would have thought? But not really. I mean, both teams are competitive, both teams having struggling starts to the season. Dallas absolutely got manhandled by the Saints, who then proceeded to lose to the Eagles. But regardless, Baltimore able to get the win. Lamar Jackson had tidy 12 for 15, 182, and I'm sure 87 yards and a touchdown on the ground was huge. Derrick Henry, monster day, 151 and 2 touchdowns. That Dallas defense does not look great. The scoreline doesn't really tell the story. It was a big Baltimore lead, 21-3, 21-6 with Aubrey. Brandon Aubrey, by the way, hit a 65-yard field goal early in the first quarter. But after that, it was pretty much all Baltimore. 28-6 at the end of the third. Fourth quarter, Dallas actually staged a pretty incredible comeback. Recovering an onside kick and just falling just a little bit short, 28-25 in the end. But another loss for Dallas. So the graphic, just checking to see if y'all still boys. Just checking to see if y'all still done boys. Came back up. Baltimore gets their first win of the season after falling to the Chiefs and the Raiders in a tight one. They get the Bills, who are red hot, coming up next. And we'll get to that one in 1 second. But first, it's the Sunday night matchup. The Chiefs, who have been winning ugly. Patrick Mahomes said his performance is down. He might be right, but they're still finding a way to win. They knocked off the Ravens. They knocked off the Bengals, and now they knock off the Falcons, all one-possession games. They're winning ugly. They're winning. No Pacheco. Carson Steele doing a lot of the same stuff on the ground. They found another underrated player just like that. Xavier Worthy in the offense, looking good for Kansas City. Although this kind of used as in the jet sweep game. Rashee Rice having the big game with 110 and a touchdown. Kirk, Carson Steele on the ground leading the way. Kirk Cousins with one touchdown, one pick, 230 on 20 of 29 through the air. And Drake London catching one of those passes. Falcons unable to, double down and, extend, get a second win after knocking off Philadelphia, but they fall to 1-2. Kansas City improves to 3-0, and now they get the Chargers coming up next week. But over to Buffalo taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pretty good game. Not really. Buffalo dominating in every stint. Damar Hamlin gets his first interception. Trevor Lawrence really struggling. 21 of 38, 178 yards and a pick. Josh Allen absolutely on cruise control to 23 for 30, 263 and 4 touchdowns, 6 carries and 44 receiving rushing yards. And the Bills look really good. I mean, we might be headed towards another Buffalo Kansas City playoff showdown, because I can tell you these two teams look like they're two of the best in the AFC. The Bills are actually way more dominant this year. I mean, the way they knocked off the Finns and Jags, and they look good. They look really good. Commanders also looking pretty good after not being able to score touchdowns, still beating the Giants. They knock off the Bengals, who are now 0-3 after 3 close losses, kind of upset the Chiefs here, falling to the Patriots, the Chiefs, and then the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels with a ridiculous completion percentage, going 21 for 23, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding another touchdown on the ground on 39 yards rushing. Terry McLaurin catching one of those touchdown passes. Austin Eckler had a bit of a big game. I think he's on the IR, but or he's going to be missing the game. But kind of back and forth. Washington getting off to a nice lead, and 28-13 in the third, and 31-20 in the fourth. But a little bit of back and forth kind of game. Able to get up 38-26, and the Bengals unable to answer or come back to win. But Washington getting a nice road win in Cincinnati. I'm impressed with Jane Daniels. I mean, completion percentage has been ridiculously high, and he looks good. He definitely looks good. Definitely what Washington drafted him for. And that's going to do the 16-game recap for this week in the podcast. Finally, we have the Week 5 preview coming up. NFL Week 5 preview, that is. Just wanted to talk about maybe not all 16 games this week, but I don't think that's going to be sustainable, to be honest. But I'll talk about the top games, starting with Cowboys versus Giants. Obviously divisional clash. Both teams 1-2. The Giants have lost 6 straight to Dallas. Obviously, so Daniel Jones just said we don't like losing to anybody. That's absolutely right, especially in the division. But this is a different game. I mean, they haven't been good. They got blown out by 40 points 2 times last week, 40-0, 40-0 at home, 49-17 on the road. This year they played at Dallas on Thanksgiving. Their other matchup also coming on a Thursday here. But Malik Neighbors ready for the showdown against Trayvon Diggs. It should be an excellent matchup there between the two of them. Really excited to see how that one goes down between Dallas and New York. I think the Cowboys still win. They kind of need to get right game, but at the same time, and they'll probably use the Giants as that. At the same time, I think with Malik Neighbors with a good passing game, with the way the Cowboys defense has struggled, with the way the Giants defense has actually played well, they can continue their momentum against the way they did against the Browns. I think this could be a good win for the Giants. This could at least be a close game. Hopefully the Giants close in on them just a little bit. I think the Cowboys still win, but I think it's going to be more like what we saw 2 years ago instead of last year at home. A close game. Cowboys get out with the win, continue that winning streak. But we'll see. We'll see what exactly happens. I think the Cowboys still edge them out at the end of the day. I mean, until I see the flip side happen, I don't believe it, especially the way the Giants have looked to start the season. Not good. I think the Cowboys extend their dominance here, but the Giants put up a good fight. Malik Neighbors puts on a good show, and it won't be completely worthless for Giants fans. That's my prediction as to that game. Bengals Panthers, Andy Dalton revenge game here. Bengals gonna desperately be needing a win. The Panthers look like they have life. I mean, I'm not too sure, what to expect. I could see this going either way. Both teams really could use a win. I feel like the Bengals might use this as a get right game and really show off there. But I think the Panthers have also found their life. I think it should be a really interesting watch. Don't really have a prediction for you. Saints Falcons. Both of these teams after playing the Eagles and the Falcons playing the Chiefs. Saints playing the Cowboys. Now they play each other. Should be a big NFC South marker game. Both of these teams have looked pretty good. I would say over achieved expectations, but I would say so far they both look good. It's early big divisional clash here. Saints looking to bounce back from their loss to Philly. Falcons look to keep the momentum rolling after beating Philly and playing close against Kansas City. Should be a good one there. Some of the other ones to look out for. Um, let's see here. Vikings Packers, I think, should be a good one in the NFC North. I think Steelers Colts should be a decent game. Eagles Buccaneers, I think, should be interesting. Both 2-1 rematch of last year's playoff game in the wild card that knocked out Philadelphia. The Chiefs Chargers in the AFC West. Chiefs looking to stay undefeated there. The Chargers, obviously a pretty good team in their own right, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that. Excuse me. We'll have to see how that one happens there. But the Chargers have always played the Chiefs pretty close. I think that could happen again. But I think Kansas City gets out of that one 4-0. They really do look good with with Rashee Rice and Worthy and their guys. I think they'll find a way on the West Coast. And Bills Ravens, I think, could be a good game. Baltimore, tough schedule to start the season, looking to even out their record. Buffalo looking to keep it rolling against another AFC North team. That's a Sunday night. Or against another AFC contender and AFC North team. That's a Sunday night game. Should be a good one. And then Monday night, Seahawks-Lions, two playoff teams in the NFC are going at it as well. We got a doubleheader, Titans-Dolphins for two teams that look to get right. But that's going to be it for my show this week. Starting, I believe next week, we're going to have the MLB playoff picture come together. Really excited to talk some baseball as well. I can mention the teams who clinched for this week. The Yankees will look to pretty much seal the AL East at 92-65 clinch, as well as the Orioles, the Guardians in the Central at 91-67. Astros in the West. Uh, um, yeah. So the Yankees and Orioles both in the playoffs in the East. Yankees upper hand. Guardians clinching the AL Central 91-67. Astros clinching the AL West 86-72, and then flipping over to the NL, the Phillies 93-65, clinching the NL East. The Mets and Braves very much alive in that division as well. The Brewers 90-67, clinching the Central. The Dodgers and the Padres both in the playoffs out of the NL West, with the Padres closing in. I believe the season ends on September 30th at the end of this month. So after that, I'll be breaking down wild card matchups. I'll be breaking down the MLB postseason as it goes on. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got for this episode of Sports Vibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar. As always, we'll see you next week for more previews and reviews of every big football game, all the news in sports, and discussion of the MLB playoffs. But until then, this has been Arnav Sarkar. This has been another episode of Sports Vibe. Have a good week, and go are you.